Hello everyone, we're going to be running through Plane of Time on my Bard Shikara today. Basically, I'll give you guys a rundown on all the fights, how to approach them, and things to think about, and etc. First up here, we got Siren. Siren's probably one of the easiest mobs in this whole zone. Um, she has a mana drain, that's basically her shtick. Rampages like everybody else. So basically for me, I'm looking at my group seeing that I got a bunch of melee. I got a shaman and a beast lord, but mainly a bunch of melee. So I'm not too worried about the AoE, which is why you'll notice I'm not running Vishan right now. So I loaded up my overhaste, my haste, and then a couple of dots. Now, the big thing about playing a bard is I like to instrument swap. So you'll notice if you look in the top left corner of my screen, you'll see my casting bar, my songs tick down, and as my songs tick down, I make sure to switch to the appropriate instrument for that song. Now I have all the bling bling, and so I got all the cool instruments, which makes instrument swapping worth it, in my opinion. If you're not rocking Plane of Time instruments and you're only working with worn mods, then it's probably fine if you just stick with your worn mods, but I like to instrument swap and get that extra bit out. Over here, it looks like tank lost aggro on Siren, so she's kind of running around. Um, don't worry too much about that. But basically, every few intervals, Siren spawns some ads in those pools. One of the pools you knock down, and then the other pool you keep mezzed because they're mezzable with enchanters. So yeah, that's basically the Siren fight. Towards the end, I'll burn her down with my nukes because we want to kill her as fast as we can at that point, because we're not killing those last few ads. We're just getting Siren down, and then we'll clean up all the ads after. Um, Here, Siren's about to go down. When she goes down, you'll see the loot there, and then I'll show you guys a little parse at the end so you can kind of see how my damage stacks up against the other classes. As you saw, we got a times antithesis, which is really cool. I think this was our first one in the guild ever. We got the cloth cap, and then the tank belt. I think it's belt the stability there. Alright, after Siren, next we usually do Terrace Thule. Terrace Thule is basically in almost every way the same thing as Siren. She does a AoE that doesn't drain your mana, but it reduces your stats, and so it sucks a big chunk of your mana pool out. So it's a poison-based AoE, so I just run the same stuff as I do for Siren on this fight. Just like Siren, she'll spawn ads. One set's mezzable, one set's not. Handle them exact same way, so basically a carbon copy fight of Siren with just a different flavor AE. Pretty easy fight. Not a whole lot to say about this one. A special point, though, to mention, while bards are not affected by mana drain AEs, we are affected by the mana pool reducing AEs. So things, for instance, that cut your intelligence down and reduce your mana pool, we will take those penalties. We will get our mana pools reduced. So it's always good to make sure that you've blown a little bit of your mana on Siren, so you're not basically wasting mana by the time you get to Terrace, because she's going to take about 30, usually about 30% of your mana pool out. So just something to keep in mind when you're fighting Terrace. Here she's about to go down. I'll show you the loot, and then we'll move on to the next fight, which is Talonzek. So you see here we got the Arm Guards of the Brood, the Coif of Flowing Time, and the Vanazirs. Alright, Talonzek, one of the probably harder mobs in this whole zone. He's one of the Zek brothers. He has a slew of AoEs. They all call Barbatalon though. One of the big problems is it's kind of hard for the tank to hold aggro on this, so you gotta be careful with aggro. And also, he doesn't spawn ads, so there's not that nice period of time where the tank's gonna be wailing on something, and everyone else is gonna be DPSing something else, giving the tank that vital time to build aggro. But yeah, so here we are DPSing Talon down, and then something happens. Yep, that's right, we aggroed Valen. Now, you're probably wondering how something like this happens, and the story is actually quite, as you would say, entertaining. Apparently, one of our very diligent and proactive members of our guild was thinking we were on Valenczek instead of Talonczek. You know, Zek brothers, you can see the confusion there. And he may have thought that it was time to pick up some ads. As you might know, Valenczek spawns a couple copies of himself that we usually have some people go pick up and kite around. Well, it wasn't Valenczek, and instead of getting the ads for Valenczek, he happened to aggro Valenczek himself, which is just a small problem. So now the raid's in like full panic mode. We're, trying to tell everyone to kite around the malls while we DPS this hoe down as fast as possible to avoid a wipe. Needless to say, we did actually successfully kill Talon despite this, and we got the loot, and it was all good, but it was definitely some butthole puckering moments, as they would say. But anyway, here's our loop, the Heroic Dex ring, the Ring of Prismatic Focus, Bracer of Precision, and then the Wing Something boots, chain boots. Anyways, up next we have Kazakh Thule, and Kazakh Thule is in Phase 5, so we're now in Phase 5 time. We usually do Kazakh Thule first, and then Burtox, because we want to space out the AoE heals that we'll need. Kazakh Thule has a silencing AoE, which you can avoid by using a fungus-covered stick, something like that. That's fungi stick from Kunark that increases your HP regen, because it has a high percentage snare on it, and for some reason that snare blocks the snare of Kazakh Thule. Well, not for some reason. The reason is that Kazakh Thule's snare is a lower percent, so the game thinks that if you're going to have a snare on you, it should be the worst one. This is really helpful because it keeps you from being silenced, and as a bard, being silenced is probably one of the most painful things that can happen to you in a raid. Oh, you're wondering what happened with Valen. Oh yeah, no, we killed Valen. The problem is that I don't know exactly what happened, but there was something wrong with my recording. I screwed it up somehow, and I didn't get the Valen Zek kill, so I'm sorry about that. I'll try to get one for you guys in the future, and I'll go over his stuff. I mean, it's not difficult. He's just kind of a tank and spank, really. His big thing is he stuns the tank for like 30 seconds, so aggro is really wonky. He also has a tank aggro debuff, so even if a new tank gets the aggro, he has a hard time building aggro because of that debuff. So it's really easy to pull aggro, even as a bard. I've pulled aggro before, but yeah, I'm sorry about not getting that kill. I'll try to get one to you guys another time. But anyways, yeah. So that's kind of it for CT as well. Just the AoE silence. You tank him with a knight because he has a fear that is unresistible, but knights can't be feared because they're AA. So we have knight tank it, and he also has an AoE stun. It's not a big deal. It hits you. You just have to restart your melody as a bard. Yeah, that's basically it for Kazakh Thule. Nothing too strenuous. So you'll see him go down here, and then we'll see the loot, and as always, at the end I'll show you guys parses for all these fights, as well as the loot that I won. I actually won quite a bit of loot during this Planet Time run. Next up is Bert. I like to go bowling with my friend Bert. Bertoxilus is really just kind of a tank and spank. His main mechanics are that he's not very receptive to anything except melee and archery damage for like the first 10 to 25%. After you get him down past 75% health, he starts to become decently susceptible to magic attacks, and so you can start landing spells on him. He has this AoE rain that does quite a bit of damage, like 1500 per hit of the rain. If you have good resist, though, this rarely lands on you, and even if it does, it's pretty manageable. And then he has another thing called like the Black Plague or Black Death or whatever it is. It's like a 3-hour AoE that snares you. However, it's weird. It's in like a root, and that you can break it early, so it never actually stays on you for 3 hours, and you don't really need to get a cure for it. So just a lot of AoE damage, and he kind of takes a little bit longer to kill than some because of his damage mitigation mechanics at the beginning, but nothing too big here. We'll skip on over to him going down, and scooping up his loot, and then we'll talk about Ralos next. So Ralozek is this big chungus right over here. Little did you know, I bet, he actually throws his axe as part of his attack, and then it comes back at him like a boomerang. You never really get to see this because we always tank him in the corner, and I think most people tank him in the corner, and he's huge as hell, so you can't really see him when you're fighting him melee. But yeah, he actually throws his axe at you, and then it like comes back to his hand. It's actually pretty cool. Um, but Ralos is he's a world beater. He basically busts your tank wide open, and that's how he tries to wipe your raid. He does have some annoying ads that we break off and kill, kind of like Saren and Terrace Thule. They're not a huge deal though. The big thing is just keeping a tank up for this guy because the first part he hits really hard like a Mack truck. And then you get him below 50% and he gets pissed off, and then he hits hard like 3 Mack trucks that just came from their recent blood doping and steroid routines, and he basically can melt anybody at that point. So just keeping the tank up is the big thing for Ralos. As a bard, there's not a whole lot that I have to worry about other than just DPSing this stuff down. If you're in a tank group, you want to make sure that your tank has good resists, because I'm pretty sure he has some sort of nasty proc that he can proc on your tanks for damage. Um, he also has this weird stun that he just hits someone at complete random in the raid. So if you ever notice your character just stops moving and you're not sure what happened, it's probably because he stunned you. And then he casts this AoE that I don't really think does anything. I think it might be a mana drain. I don't really know. It never hits me. I don't think you need a whole lot of resists to resist it. It's called like Rage of Zek or something. So we can go ahead, and if you notice, Ralos dropped a really important item that I want to spend a little time and talk about today. Now, see as Ralos goes down here, he dropped a staff, some pants, and the Tonpo's mystical pouch. Now, this pouch is really big, and unfortunately, when I was doing this recording the first time, there was some interference or something going on. So I put in some subtitles for you guys so you could actually understand what I'm saying, because when I listened to this video back, it didn't make any sense, and this is the best way I could think to fix it. So I just added in subtitles so you can understand what I'm actually saying. This pouch is a class-defining item for monks, and being one of the most important class and group of players in EQ, they require items like this to properly execute and do their job. We're really fortunate in Bloodthirst to have a guild leader who understands this, and he makes sure via loot reserves that our monks have access to the requirements that they need to raid. I hope every monk in the guild gets one of these, and maybe, just maybe, if it's fitting, I might get one for myself. God bless monks. Anyways, on to Innerrook. So Innerrook is probably the hardest boss in Planet Time. He has an AoE fear that can really mess up the raid. He hits like a truck, and he spawns 2 sets of ads, one at 20%, one at 80%. And these ads, unlike previous bosses who have spawned ads, are not very feasible to kill just because they have so much HP and they hit quite hard. So normally we control these ads by rooting them around various parts of the room where people aren't going to be. However, sometimes, as it be, our rooters root the ads in a way that it kind of forms like little gauntlets. So like when you get feared, like you're running through this gauntlet where the ads are just beating on your ass, and you just have to pray to God that you live. So that's always real fun. But other than that, as my job as a bard, it's basically just to beat his ass until he drops his loot. This guy drops basically some of the best loot at a Plane of Time, in my opinion, because he drops the bard class weapon, which is basically sex on a stick. I can show that to you guys later if you want. The first ad, as you can see here, we kill because it's right on top of Innerrook, and it would just be a pain to try to get it pulled off and rooted away. So we kill this one ad, and then the other 2 get rooted. The next 3 that he spawns when he gets down to 20%, we just ignore, and we burn him down. That's basically it for Innerrook, so we'll skip on to him dropping his goodies, and we'll move on to the last and final boss, Quorum. Alright, the most important part about Quorum, and let me tell you this, the most important part about quorum, if you do nothing else, is to make sure you get the server-wide message. So, as you'll see here, I'm going to make sure that I get the server-wide message. And before anyone is really ready in the raid, I just go ahead and pull them. Basically what this does is it forces the raid to pick two options, right? They can either sit there while I pull the mob on them and they can all wipe, which will cause a lot of hours of grief and suffering and recovery. In the meantime, I'll probably get yelled at a lot. But the better option for everyone is just to kill the mob. So basically, I'm holding my raid hostage for the server wide. And this is really important because when you kill Quorum, you want everyone to know that it was you. You want to be the name associated up in lights when you kill Quorum. So be sure, kind of check to see how much of your raid is there. If you have enough to kill him, you know, clerics shouldn't talk about crap like mana and buffs. Don't listen to any of that. Pull the mob right on top of the raid. They have to kill the mob. That'll secure your server wide, and basically your job is done. I do little luxury stuff here, right? Like I actually DPS the mob. I sing some buffs for my group. None of that stuff's really quite as important as getting that server wide. But the other thing I'm doing is, if you notice, I'm standing right under quorum like this. This is a parsing thing. I like to get all the good, juicy parsing numbers, so I stand right under quorum. This allows you to make sure you get the proper parse for quorum. If you notice other people who try to parse quorum, it's all wonky. It's because they stand on the outside ring. Quorum has about 2 million hit points, so if you ever want to check your parse and see if you're anything close to that, you probably have a pretty accurate parse if you're looking at around 2 million hit points. So we're gonna skip on over to him dropping his loot, and then I'll show you guys the items that I won, and then we'll call it a day there. Thanks for attending this Bloodthirst Planet Time raid. As far as loot that I won, first we have the Greaves of Furious Might from Kazakh Thule, the Arm Guards of the Brute from Terrace Thule, and the Gloves of Airy Mist from Inaruk. Now we'll look at the parses. Coming at 12 on Siren, pretty good. Coming in at 12 again on Terrace Thule. Came in at about 18 on Talonzek. Phoned it in for this one at 28 on Kazakh Thule. Phoned it in harder on this one at 34 on Burt. Made a comeback here on Inaruk. Coming in at 15. And then on Quorum, we wrapped it up at 22. Now's about the time where people pull aggro.